The sun was sliding down the sky, turning the open land into a warm mix of gold and soft shadows. Caleb Holt, a quiet rancher known for keeping to himself, walked along the fence line of his large Wyoming ranch. This was something he did almost every evening, partly out of habit and partly because the open fields helped him think. Ranch life was peaceful, but it also meant anything unusual stood out quickly. For the past few days, he had heard talk at the small-town store that someone had been wandering around near the back roads. Nobody knew who it was, only that a few neighbors had heard odd sounds at night, like footsteps or someone calling for help. Caleb didn't pay much attention at first. But tonight, he felt something different in the air. The wind carried a strange stillness. And his horses had been restless earlier, which was unlike them. As he reached the far end of the field, he noticed something near the old cattle shed, something that didn't belong. It looked like a person. A small figure, maybe a woman, crouched low near the side of the shed, as if trying to stay hidden. Caleb slowed down, unsure. He didn't want to scare whoever it was, but he needed to find out why they were on his land. He stopped several yards away and spoke in a calm, steady voice. "Hi there. Are you all right?" The figure jerked up fast. It was a young woman, thin, covered in dust, trembling from head to toe. Her clothes were worn, and her hair was messy, as if she had been outside for a long time. Her eyes were wide, full of fear that made her look like a cornered animal trying to decide whether to run or hide. She held a rusted piece of fence wire in her hand, gripping it like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Her breathing was sharp and uneven. She looked at Caleb as though he were a threat instead of a rancher who had just finished checking fences. "Don't come closer," she warned, her voice shaking. "Stay right there." Caleb froze immediately. He raised both hands slowly to show he meant no harm. "Okay," he said softly. But she didn't look safe. She looked terrified. Caleb could see her shoulders trembling, her legs weak, like she could fall at any moment. The wire in her hand wasn't held in an angry way, it was held in desperation, as if she believed it was her only protection against the world. She kept watching him with fearful eyes, like she expected him to rush forward at any second. Caleb stayed still. He knew that one wrong move could make her run deeper into the fields, where she could get lost or hurt. "I don't want anything from you," he continued gently. "I just want to know if you need help." Her breath caught. For a moment, she looked unsure whether she should believe him. Her fingers tightened around the wire. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I can't trust anyone." Caleb nodded slowly. "All right. You don't have to trust me. But you look tired, and the night is coming fast. It gets very cold out here after sunset." The woman swallowed hard. She glanced toward the road behind the ranch, then toward the horizon, as if expecting someone or something to appear. Her eyes filled with panic again. "Is anyone else with you?" she asked in a scared voice. "No," he replied. "Just me." She blinked quickly, as if trying to decide whether to believe that. Her breathing grew faster again. I just need to stay hidden," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Just for a little while. I can't go back. I can't go back." Her words were confusing, but Caleb could see the truth in her eyes. She wasn't running from him. She was running from something else, something that had shaken her deeply. And whatever it was, she still felt unsafe. "You can stay right where you are," he said calmly. "I won't come closer. I won't ask you to go anywhere. Just talk to me from there, if you feel comfortable." For the first time, she hesitated instead of reacting. Caleb could see her mind working, trying to decide if she could trust him with even a few words. After a long pause, she spoke again. "My name is Mara," she said softly, as if saying her own name felt risky. "I didn't mean to end up here. I wasn't trying to cause trouble." "I know," Caleb said gently. You don't look like someone trying to cause trouble. You look like someone who needs a safe place." The word safe made her close her eyes for a brief second. When she opened them, tears had gathered in the corners. She quickly wiped them away with the back of her hand, embarrassed. "I've been walking for hours," she admitted. "I didn't know where I was going. I just kept moving." Caleb glanced at her feet. Her shoes were dusty and worn, the soles thin. It looked like she had walked far too far for someone who seemed so exhausted. "Do you want water?" he asked carefully. "I can set a bottle on the ground and step back." Mara shook her head fast, fear rising again. "No. No, please. Just stay right there." "All right," he replied. "I'll stay right here." He stayed still. Hands still shone so she could see them clearly. He let the silence settle, calm and steady. He didn't push her, didn't ask more questions. He simply stayed present, hoping the quiet would help her breathe easier. After a few long moments, Mara spoke again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't talk to strangers. I didn't know what else to do. I'm lost." "You're not alone anymore," Caleb said softly. "You're on my ranch. I won't let anything happen to you." Mara's lips pressed into a thin line, as if she wanted to believe him but still couldn't let herself relax. Her shoulders were tight with worry. And every sound, the wind, a distant bird, a creak from the shed, made her flinch. Caleb tried to ease the tension with his tone. "If you want, you can stay near the shed until you feel calmer. I'll keep my distance. You set the rules." She looked at him for a long, searching moment. "No tricks?" "No tricks," he promised. The sky grew darker, turning purple and blue like soft paint strokes across the horizon. The chill in the air made Mara wrap her arms around herself. She shivered, not just from the cold but from whatever she had been through before arriving here. Caleb noticed, but he didn't move toward her. "There's an old blanket inside the shed. I can get it if you want. I'll lay it down and step away." Mara hesitated. Her fear wrestled with her need for warmth. "Just don't come close to me," she said weakly. "I won't," he assured. He walked slowly, making sure she could see every step. He opened the shed door quietly, took an old wool blanket from a hook, then placed it on the ground several yards away and stepped far back. Mara stared at the blanket, unsure at first. Then, with small, careful steps, she edged toward it. She picked it up like it was something fragile, then wrapped it around herself. Her shoulders relaxed just slightly, the first sign of comfort he had seen. She looked back at him. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice still shaking but less sharp now. "You're welcome," Caleb replied with a gentle nod. The moment felt delicate, like the first bit of trust forming in a world that had scared her deeply. Caleb didn't know her story yet, but he knew she needed kindness more than anything. And as the night settled around them, the wide field, quiet and still, he stayed exactly where she asked him to, far enough for her to feel safe, close enough for her not to feel alone. Mara sat on the cold ground near the old shed, wrapped tightly in the wool blanket Caleb had given her. The warmth of the fabric helped a little, but her mind was still racing. Her eyes kept drifting toward the road, as if expecting something unwelcome to appear at any moment. Every few seconds, she glanced back at Caleb, still unsure if she could trust him completely. Caleb didn't move from where he stood. He kept a respectful distance, leaning lightly against the fence so she could see he had no intention of stepping any closer. The soft evening wind brushed through the grass, carrying with it the familiar scent of hay and open land. He hoped the calmness of the ranch would help her settle. "You don't have to talk," he said softly after a long moment. Mara nodded slowly but didn't let her guard down fully. She pulled the blanket tighter and tried to steady her breathing. The sky above them darkened into deeper shades of blue, and the first few stars began to appear. The peaceful sight should have comforted her, but inside she still felt weary, like she had been walking through fear for too long. "You said your name is Mara?" Caleb asked gently, his voice low and soothing. She hesitated, then nodded again. "That's a nice name," he continued. "I'm Caleb." Mara looked at him for a second. The way he spoke was different from what she had grown used to, slow, patient, without any pressure. She didn't feel hurried or judged. That alone made her eyes soften slightly. "I'm sorry," she said in a faint voice. "I didn't mean to sound harsh earlier. I was just scared." "You don't owe me an apology," Caleb replied. "Anyone would feel uneasy if they were out here alone." Mara looked away, her gaze drifting over the wide fields. The open space made her feel both free and exposed at the same time. The silence grew thick again, filled only with the distant sound of crickets. Caleb waited a while before speaking again. "If you want to tell me how you ended up here, I'll listen. If you don't want to talk, that's okay too." Quote, 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 quote. Mara swallowed hard. Her hands tightened around the blanket, the fabric twisting between her fingers. She didn't know where to begin. Everything inside her felt tangled. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't plan any of this." After. Caleb nodded gently. "Most people don't plan the hard days." Mara took a shaky breath. "My car stopped working this afternoon. I was on the highway, and it just quit. I didn't know what to do. My phone battery was almost gone. I waited for a long time, hoping someone kind would stop." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "A man pulled over," she said. "He seemed friendly at first. He said he would help me find a repair shop. I believed him." Caleb's expression stayed neutral, respectful, not pushing her to say more than she felt comfortable sharing. "We drove for a while," she continued softly. "But then the road didn't look familiar anymore. I didn't know where we were going. I asked questions, but he didn't really answer. He just said not to worry." Caleb listened quietly, keeping his posture calm and open. "I didn't understand what was happening," Mara said, her voice trembling again. "Everything felt wrong. I asked him to stop the car so I could call someone, but he just kept driving." She looked down at her hands, twisting the blanket edges. "I got more and more uneasy. Finally, when the car slowed near a dirt road, I got out fast. I don't even know how I did it. I just ran." She closed her eyes, her face tightening, but not in anger, in exhaustion. "I just kept walking," she whispered. "I walked without knowing where the road led. I was afraid to look back. I didn't want to see anything following me. Starts, people. Lever once. I was not some." Caleb let several seconds pass before speaking. "You must have felt very tired." "I was," she said. "I still am. But stopping felt even harder than walking. I just needed to get away from the unknown." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. Her eyes didn't carry rage or blame, only fear and confusion. The kind that comes from not understanding someone else's intentions and not wanting to imagine the worst. "You've been through a lot today," Caleb said quietly. "More than anyone should have to deal with in one afternoon." Mara looked at him again. His calm tone helped her feel less alone, even though she still wasn't ready to trust fully. "I thought you were connected to him when I saw you walking here," she admitted. "I thought maybe he had come after me. I didn't know what to do." I understand," Caleb replied softly. "You don't know me. And this place must feel unfamiliar." "Yes," she whispered. "Everything feels unfamiliar right now." Caleb shifted slightly, careful not to take a step forward. "Do you know where your car is?" "Do you know where your car is?" "I left it near the highway," she said. "I didn't look back after I got out. I just ran until the road changed to dirt. Then I walked until I reached your ranch." You must have walked a long way, Caleb said. That's several miles. Mara nodded weakly. It felt endless. And I was so scared of seeing headlights behind me that I didn't stop. Caleb was silent, thinking. I can call someone to help you, he said at last. Someone who's trained to handle situations like this. They can check the road, help find your car, and make sure you get home safely. Mara stiffened again, shaking her head. No, I don't want more strangers. I don't want anyone asking too many questions. I just want to rest somewhere for a moment. I understand, he replied gently. We can wait a little while. You decide what happens next. She looked surprised. You're not going to force me to do anything? No, Caleb said. You've had enough pressure today. You deserve to feel in control of something. Those words seemed to reach her. Her shoulders loosened a tiny bit. Her eyes softened. Thank you, she whispered. Caleb gave her a small nod, as if to say she didn't need to thank him for something so simple. For a while, neither of them spoke. The moon began to rise, shining over the fields like a silver lantern. Mara watched its reflection on the grass, trying to let the calmness of the land ease her tense thoughts. After a long stretch of quiet, she said softly, I feel foolish for being so scared. You aren't foolish, Caleb replied. When the world feels uncertain, fear is natural. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means something important inside you wants to stay safe. Mara breathed slowly, absorbing his words. I didn't know where to go, she said. I just kept moving because staying still felt dangerous. But you're not alone now, Caleb said. And you can breathe here. Mara looked around at the open fields, the quiet sky, the peaceful shapes of distant trees. The ranch felt safe in a way she hadn't expected. The calmness wrapped around her like the blanket she held. And for the first time since the afternoon, she felt her heartbeat slow to a steadier rhythm. I'm still worried he might come looking, she admitted quietly. If anyone shows up here, Caleb said, I'll make sure you stay protected. But we don't have to think about that unless it happens. She stared at him, searching his face for any sign of hidden intent. All she found was sincerity. Why are you being so kind? She asked. Because you needed someone to be kind today. Her eyes filled again, though this time not from fear, more from the overwhelming relief of meeting someone gentle after a long day of uncertainty. Caleb, she whispered, her voice small but steady. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't seen your ranch. I was so tired. I was ready to lie down on the side of the road. You're here now, he said. And you're safe. Mara nodded slowly, letting the comfort of those words settle in her chest. Maybe, she said softly. Maybe I can tell you more. Only if you want to, he said quietly. And under the rising moon, wrapped in a blanket and surrounded by calm fields, she began to share the pieces of her long, confusing day pieces she had been carrying alone until now. The night settled deeper around the ranch, painting the fields in quiet shades of blue and silver. Mara felt a little calmer now, wrapped in the blanket and sitting close to the shed. But she still kept glancing toward the long dirt road that led in from the highway. Every time a breeze brushed past, she jumped slightly, thinking it might be something else. Her nerves were still delicate, like a thin string pulled tight. Caleb remained in the same place, leaning lightly on the fence. He stayed close enough so she wouldn't feel abandoned, but far enough to keep her comfortable. The moonlight made his calm expression easier to read, and that alone helped her breathe a bit easier. Slowly, she continued, telling him small parts of her long day, how her thoughts had become cloudy after leaving the highway, how her sense of direction faded as the sky changed colors, how she felt like any wrong step could put her in more danger. Caleb listened, without interrupting, nodding gently every now and then so she knew he was following. You did the right thing coming this way, he said softly. The back roads around here can be confusing, but this land is open. Anyone passing by is easy to see. Mara looked out at the fields stretching in every direction, glowing faintly under the moon. The openness comforted her, as if the wide land was standing beside her, keeping watch. But as another minute passed, a new worry crept into her thoughts. "What if he comes looking for me?" she whispered. Caleb looked toward the road, then back at her. "If anyone shows up here, I'll speak to them calmly. You can stay right where you are. No one will trouble you." His voice held no anger, no threat, just firm reassurance. Mara nodded slightly, though her fingers tightened again on the blanket. The ranch was quiet, except for the crickets and the occasional soft call of a night bird. The horses in the pasture shifted a little, but stayed peaceful, as if they trusted the night air. Mara wished she could be as calm as they were. Then, far in the distance, something changed. A small glow appeared at the end of the dirt road, a pair of headlights. Faint at first, but slowly growing brighter. Mara's breath stopped. Her body stiffened, as if the blanket suddenly vanished from her shoulders. "Caleb," she whispered, her voice filled with worry. He had already seen the lights. He straightened from the fence, not moving toward her, but shifting his stance so he stood between her and the oncoming glow without blocking her view completely. "It might just be a neighbor," he said calmly. "People sometimes drive through these roads at night." But Mara's heart raced. Something about the lights felt too familiar to her, too close to the memory she had been running from all day. She pulled the blanket tighter and crouched lower, instinctively seeking cover. Caleb raised a hand gently. "It's okay. You stay where you feel safe." The vehicle moved slowly along the dirt road, its headlights sweeping across the field like a pair of searching eyes. The beams of light slid over the fences, the pasture, the shed, then paused for a moment, as if the driver had spotted something that made him curious. Mara ducked behind a stack of hay bales beside the shed, her breath trembling. Caleb heard the soft rustle of straw, but didn't turn around. He knew she needed to feel hidden. The vehicle rolled forward another few feet, then its engine hummed lower as it slowed. Caleb took a gentle breath. "I'll handle this," he said quietly, not to reassure himself, but to give Mara something to hold on to. The headlights finally came to a stop a short distance away. The soft rumble of the engine filled the night air. For a long moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched thin. Then the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, dressed plainly in jeans and a jacket. He didn't look aggressive, just alert, scanning the area as if searching for someone. His expression was unreadable in the dim light. Caleb kept his tone friendly. "Evening," he called out in a calm voice. "Something I can help you with?" The man paused, then walked a few slow steps forward. "Yeah," he replied casually. "I'm looking for someone. My friend. She got out of my car earlier, and I'm trying to find her. Thought she might have passed by here." Caleb didn't move from where he stood. "I haven't seen anyone," he said, in a steady, neutral tone. The man looked around again, his eyes drifting over the field, the shed, the fence, as if trying to pick up any sign. His gaze lingered a bit too long on the area near the hay bales, where Mara was hiding. Caleb stepped slightly sideways, not closer to the man, but enough so he stood in his line of sight. "This is private property," Caleb said politely. "Not many folks wander through here." "I see," the man said, nodding slowly. "She must have gone another way." The tension hung between them, not loud, not threatening, just heavy, like two people standing inside a moment where the wrong word could shift everything. Mara crouched lower, hugging the blanket to herself. Her heartbeat felt loud in her ears. She didn't dare peek out. She trusted Caleb to keep the situation calm. The man looked at Caleb again. "If you do see a young woman around here, let me know. She might be confused." Caleb nodded politely. "If I see anyone, I'll call someone appropriate who can help her safely." The man hesitated at that answer, as if trying to decide how to interpret it. Then he slowly nodded again. He walked back to his vehicle, got inside, and closed the door. The engine hummed louder, and the headlights swept across the pasture once more before the vehicle turned around. As the car rolled back down the dirt road, Caleb watched it leave until the taillights faded into two small dots and then disappeared completely. Only then did he let out a slow breath. The night grew still again. "You can come out now," he said gently, not turning around until he heard the soft sound of hay shifting. Mara rose slowly from behind the hay bales, her face pale under the moonlight. She wrapped the blanket tighter as she approached, her steps small and cautious. "Was that him?" she whispered. "I don't know for certain," Caleb said softly. "But he seemed very determined to find someone. You don't have to explain more than you want. I just need to know. Do you feel unsafe? Because of him?" Mara's lips trembled. "Yes," she whispered. Caleb nodded slowly. He didn't look shocked, just concerned in a calm, steady way. "All right, then I'll call the sheriff." "No, please," she said quickly, holding the blanket tight around her. "I won't tell anyone your story unless you choose to share it," Caleb assured her. "But if someone is out here searching for you, it's safer to have a trained person nearby, not to question you, only to make sure you don't have to deal with anything alone." Mara lowered her gaze. The idea of more strangers made her nervous, but Caleb's tone wasn't forceful, it was supportive. I don't know," she whispered. "I'm scared of saying anything wrong." "You don't have to say anything," Caleb said. "You just have to let someone trustworthy stand by." She hesitated for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay. If you think it's the right thing." Caleb pulled out his phone, not quickly, not in a way that would alarm her. He stepped several feet away to make the call, speaking in a calm, clear voice. Mara listened to only a few words, none of which revealed anything private about her. Caleb simply said he saw someone driving suspiciously close to the ranch and felt it would be best if someone came to check the area. He ended the call within a minute and returned to stand in the same calm, steady posture as before. "They're on their way," he said gently. "You'll be all right." Mara nodded faintly. She didn't feel fully relaxed, but she wasn't alone. That made a world of difference. As they waited, she stood near the shed, her eyes drifting once more to the open fields. The night no longer felt like something closing in on her, it felt like a large, quiet space holding her safely. "You did well," Caleb said softly. "You trusted your instincts, and you kept moving until you reached a safe place." Mara looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and disbelief. "I didn't think I would find anyone kind tonight." "Well," Caleb said with a small smile, "the night isn't over yet." The soft rumble of a distant vehicle reached them again, but this time, Mara didn't flinch. She knew someone trustworthy was coming. Someone neutral. Someone who could help. And for the first time since her long day began, she felt the smallest spark of hope flicker inside her chest, gentle, but real. The sound of the approaching vehicle grew clearer as it made its way down the dirt road. Mara stood still near the shed, her blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders. Even though Caleb had told her that someone trustworthy was coming, her heart thumped nervously. After the long day she had endured, it was hard to believe that everything was finally moving toward safety. Caleb stayed near her, not close enough to overwhelm her, but close enough so she would know she wasn't facing this moment alone. His presence was steady, like a quiet anchor in the middle of a shifting world. A few minutes later, the glow of headlights appeared over the small hill and rolled gently onto the ranch road. The car moved slowly, its lights sweeping across the grass before coming to a calm stop near the fence. When the driver stepped out, the soft shine of the moon revealed a friendly face, Sheriff McCall, a well-known and trusted person in the community. He was a middle-aged man with a calm posture and kind eyes. He closed the door gently and walked forward without any rush, wanting to show that he brought no pressure with him. "Evening, Caleb," he said in a warm voice. Got your message. Everything all right here? Caleb nodded. Thanks for coming. Things are okay now. We just had a visitor earlier who seemed a little too curious. The sheriff's eyes shifted toward Mara, but he didn't stare at her. He gave her a polite nod, offering her space. Good evening, miss. I'm here to help, but only if you feel comfortable. Mara's throat tightened slightly. She returned a small nod, appreciating his gentle tone. Hello. Sheriff McCall kept a few steps back, showing respect. I understand you may have had a long day. You don't need to share anything you're not ready to. I'm just here to make sure you're safe tonight. His voice carried warmth, not cold authority, which helped ease some of the tension in her chest. Caleb continued standing nearby, quietly supporting her. The sheriff looked around the field. Caleb mentioned a car drove through earlier? Did it stop here? It did, Caleb said. The driver was looking for someone and didn't seem to want to leave right away. Sheriff McCall nodded thoughtfully. I passed a vehicle going back toward the highway on my way in. I'll check on the roads again before I head back. Ah. Mara listened silently, hugging the blanket. The sheriff noticed her nervous posture and softened his tone even more. You're safe here, he said kindly. This is one of the quietest ranches in the county. Nothing is going to happen to you tonight. Mara blinked slowly, comforted by the gentle assurance. After a moment, the sheriff asked, Do you need a ride somewhere? Do you have family we can call to come pick you up? Mara swallowed. My sister, she whispered softly. She lives in town. But I didn't want to worry her. Family would want to know you're all right, Sheriff McCall said gently. If you want, I can call her for you, or you can speak to her yourself. Mara hesitated, thinking of her sister's warm, familiar voice, the voice she had missed all day. A small warmth spread through her chest at the thought. I'd like to call her, she said finally. The sheriff nodded and handed her his phone, making sure to step back to give her space. Mara dialed the number slowly, her hands trembling, but not from fear, this time simply from relief. The moment her sister answered, Mara's eyes filled with tears she had been holding for hours. I'm okay, she managed to say softly. I'm safe. I'm at a ranch. I'm okay now. Her sister's voice on the other end was full of concern, but also deep relief. Mara explained that she needed to be picked up, and her sister promised she would leave immediately. When the call ended, Mara handed the phone back with a small, grateful nod. She's coming, she said. Good, Sheriff McCall replied kindly. I'll wait here until she arrives. Mara nodded again and stepped back toward the shed, breathing deeply. The blanket wrapped around her felt like a shield. Not from danger, but from the long day she had survived. Caleb walked closer, still keeping a comfortable distance, and spoke in his soft, steady tone. You did well tonight. Mara looked at him, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. I don't think I could have managed without you. Caleb shook his head gently. You were strong long before I showed up. You walked all the way here. You kept going when it was difficult. That takes courage. Mara's throat tightened again, not from fear, but from the overwhelming kindness she had received from someone she had not known even a few hours ago. I've never been so scared and relieved in the same day, she admitted quietly. That's how hard days work, Caleb replied with a gentle smile. They shake us, but they also show us how strong we really are. The night settled even deeper, but the air felt warmer now, softer. The fear that had wrapped Mara's day slowly began to fade, replaced by the steady comfort of two people who had stayed by her side. A soft glow appeared down the road, another pair of headlights. Mara's heart didn't jump this time. She knew this light belonged to someone safe. That must be her, Caleb said. The car came to a stop near the ranch gate, and a woman about Mara's age stepped out quickly, worry and relief written all over her face. Mara. Mara hurried forward, still wrapped in the blanket. Her sister pulled her into a gentle embrace, careful not to overwhelm her. Mara closed her eyes, letting the familiar comfort wash over her. "I was so worried," her sister whispered. "I'm okay now," Mara said softly, her voice steady. "Really?" Plen. Caleb watched the reunion quietly, a small smile forming. Sheriff McCall stepped forward and greeted Mara's sister, explaining briefly that she had simply needed help getting home. Her sister approached Caleb with grateful eyes. "Thank you," she said sincerely, "for taking care of her when she needed help." Caleb shook his head humbly. "She found her way here all on her own. I just made sure she wasn't alone." Mara's sister nodded, appreciating his modesty. Before leaving, Mara turned back to look at Caleb. The blanket still wrapped around her shoulders held the warmth of the ranch, the safety she had felt for the first time that day. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but full of emotion. "For everything. For listening. For not pushing me. For being kind." Caleb's gentle smile widened just a little. "Take care, Mara. And make sure you rest. You've had a long day." She nodded, her eyes soft. "I won't forget this place." As she walked toward her sister's car, she paused for a moment at the door and looked out across the wide field, the same field she had crossed in fear, now seen in a completely different light. The wind brushed gently past, as if wishing her peace. She got into the car, and her sister drove slowly down the dirt road, the headlights creating a long, bright path toward home. Caleb and Sheriff McCall watched until the car disappeared over the hill. Soon after, the sheriff turned to Caleb. "You handled everything well tonight," he said. "Not everyone knows how to be calm in moments like that." Caleb shrugged lightly. "Sometimes, people just need understanding more than anything." The sheriff nodded and headed back to his vehicle. "Call me if you need anything else." When he left, the ranch grew quiet again, peaceful and familiar. Caleb walked back toward the shed, where the spot of flattened hay still remained from where Mara had sought safety. The moon shone brightly above, lighting up the quiet land. He stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle around him. A young woman had arrived in fear. She left with hope. And the ranch, with its wide-open fields and gentle night air, had held one more story within its quiet spaces, one that would stay with him for a long time.